Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. In this video, I'll be going over the Blue Crocodile Starter Deck that I've optimized for deck limited battles. Blue has certainly seen a rise in popularity since the Super Pre-release, and for good reason. It has a positive matchup over the Green Uses Kid Starter Deck that performed well at the Super Pre-release events, but more importantly, it gains the most from being able to combine the two starter decks because, in my opinion, it had the best 2-ofs to double up on. This deck has the best defense with all the blockers that you could take advantage of, and if board control is your style of play, then this is the deck for you, as there are several effects that bounce characters back to the owner's hand. That brings us to our leader card, Crocodile, who has a really good effect where once per turn you may place 4 Dawn back into your Dawn deck in order to bounce a character with a cost of 5 or less back to the owner's hand. Every card can be bounced with this effect outside of some of the secret rares and promo Luffy and Kaido, so it's very strong in this format. It does require some thinking as to what and when to bounce because it's such a versatile effect. You can use it defensively to deny your opponent a strong attacker, or you can simply remove blockers from the field to go on the offensive. Trafalgar Law is a 1-cost 1000 power with the blocker effect. Every deck in this format should be playing for their low cost blockers, so moving on, we have 2 Jinbei, who is a 2-cost 4000 power with counter 1000. This deck doesn't have too many playable cards on the first turn, so I wanted to add just a few more options with the 2-cost vanilla, and more counter options is always nice to have. Boa Hancock is another card with a blocker effect at a fairly low cost. She's a 3-cost 1000 power with counter 1000, and I think she's one of the best cards to have the trigger effect that allows you to play the card immediately onto your board. She's a must play at 4 for the deck in order to maximize your opportunity to play a free blocker, and even if you have to pay the 3 costs to put her on board, it's usually still worth it. Edward Weevil is a 3-cost 5000 power with counter 1000 and is another vanilla low cost attacker in the deck. Like Jinbei, I played 2 copies of him. I decided to split them at 2 each because while Jinbei does provide a turn 1 option, Weevil having a base 5000 allows me to attack more often without adding any Dawn. I could mess with these ratios in the future, but for those reasons I just pointed out, I think they both provide equal value to the deck. Sentomaru is absolutely one of the best cards in the deck. He's a 3-cost 4000 power with counter 1000, and his effect provides the best form of offense for this deck. By attaching 1 Dawn, you can rest 2 Dawn and search your deck for a Pacifista and put it into play. You can flood the board pretty quickly with this effect, and a lot of the time you won't even attack with Sentomaru early on, so you could continuously use this effect. By not attacking, your opponent will have to rely on other ways to get rid of Sentomaru before they're staring down a board full of powerful Pacifistas. You're definitely going to want to max this card out to increase your odds of seeing him as early as possible. Dracula Mihawk is your 2000 counter for this deck, but he has some value as an attacker as well with an effect that makes him worth playing in certain situations. He's a 4-cost 5000 power to go along with that 2000 counter, and his effect is, when attacking, you draw 2 cards and then trash 2 cards from your hand. The effect is a nice way to dig into your deck for cards you may need over some cards in your hand. He's another card you'll want to play 4 of just for the 2000 counter alone. There is some synergy with Mihawk in our next card, Gecko Moria, since he has an on-play effect that allows you to put a 7 Warlords of the Sea or Thriller Bark Pirates card with a cost of 4 or less from your trash into your hand. This does exclude himself, but if you chose to use Mihawk's effect, you can choose to trash some cards with 4 or less, and then get them back with Gecko Moria. A common play with his effect is to get back your low-cost blocker Law, or Mihawk after using his 2000 counter. Gecko Moria has a really strong effect, being able to get cards back from your trash, and he also has nice stats for being a 4-cost with 5000 power and counter 1000, so I think he's a must play at 4 as well. The Pacifista we have available is a 4-cost 6000 power with counter 1000. You'll want to run 4 of these to flood with Sentomaru, and if you happen to have them in hand, paying 4 cost for 6000 power is still a fine play. Marshall D. Teach is a 4-cost 4000 power with counter 1000. His power is low for a 4-cost, but he has another nice bouncing effect allowing you to send a character with a cost of 3 or less back into the owner's hand when you play him onto the field. I maxed this card out to increase my chances of getting Teach early on because he's a great turn 2 or 3 play to put a card back into my opponent's hand and stop some of their momentum. He's also pretty good later on as a cheaper option to get rid of my opponent's blockers. The promo Crocodile is so similar to the 5-cost Crocodile that I split them for now. I'm still feeling it out, but so far this is a card that I have no problem playing whenever I get it into my hand, and it serves its purpose. It costs 1 less than the secret rare Croc, but it has 1000 less base power. It requires a Dawn for the blocker ability, but you don't necessarily have to put a Dawn on him every turn if you have other blockers on the field, so He can be used as a solid attacker as well. He does have the 1000 counter advantage of the 5 cost Croc too, so I think they're both just very close. With further testing, I might even consider a full takeover with the promo. I could see his 1000 counter being a tip in his favor if I believe that Law and Bo Hancock provide all the blocking I need, because to be honest, being useful in hand is kind of a big deal. The 5 cost Crocodile has 6000 power with an automatic blocker effect. He has an additional effect, Don times 1. On block, place one character with a cost of 2 or less at the bottom of the owner's deck. The secondary effect is quite good and can be pretty annoying for your opponent when making the decision to attack you. If it weren't for this secondary effect, I think the takeover would be an easy choice, but I've had good results with the Secret Rare when using his Don times 1 effect, so I think it's a great addition to the deck still. Doflamingo is a powerful card right now, and I wouldn't play less than 4 of him. He's your late game closer as a 7 cost with 7000 power and has the always useful effect to bounce a character with 7 cost or less back to the owner's hand. This effect makes the 7 cost blocker Eustace Kid cry and is a big reason why blue has such a good matchup against green. Thrustbat Cannon is a counter event I use quite a bit in testing, but it's a card that's seeing a lot less play lately. This card costs 2 Don to play and you get to return one character with a cost of 3 or less back to the owner's hand. Since this is during your counter phase, you can completely stop attacks from low cost cards like Sanji, Uroge, or 3 cost vanillas, just to give some examples. There are also some combos you can pull off to stop bigger attacks if you block with your Law or your Boa Hancock, and then you use this card to put them back into your hand. This would save you the blocker to play later on in the game. As I mentioned in my Going Green video, you can use this tactic against Basil Hawkins and they do not get to restand him for his effect. I think it's a useful card, but I have cut it down to 2 so that I can add in some more counters and characters that I can play onto the field. One last note on Thrustbat Cannon is that it does have a trigger to play it right away, so that can be pretty useful too. Love Love Mellow is another counter event card and is one of the best cards along with Centimara that we're able to increase to 4 copies of by combining the starter decks. This is a must play at 4 in my opinion, because for 2 Dawn, during your counter phase you can choose one of your leader or character cards and give them plus 4000 power during the battle. Then draw 1 card if you have 3 or less cards in hand. Plus 4000 is a big counter, and having the ability to be able to draw a card is a huge swing in your favor. The 2 of these counter event cards allow you to play mind games with your opponents too. If you leave 2 Dawn up during your opponent's turn, they could overcommit Dawn when attacking under the assumption that you have Love Love Mellow, and it just changes the way that they might approach their turns in general. Making your opponent take more into consideration is the advantage and the fun behind playing a control deck. Lastly, we have the amazing event card Sables, which is a 4 cost that allows you to return one character with a cost of 7 or less to the owner's hand. This is basically the 7 cost of Flamingo's effect, only you're paying 4 Dawn to activate it during your main phase. It also has a trigger to activate the card's main effect, so that's very strong as well. You'll definitely want to play 4 of these. The only other card I don't play that you could possibly consider for this deck is Bartholomew Kuma. I'm not really a big fan of this card, but his effect, which lets you look at the top 3 cards of your deck and return them to the top or bottom in any order, is nice for consistency. He also doesn't cost much to play, but to be honest, he's just dead weight out on the board because he only has 3000 power. Not having any counter is also a huge drawback. The only time I'd like this card is if you played it right away off of trigger, but to pull that off consistently, you need to play way more copies of him than I think you should be. I just wanted to mention Kuma as an option for those that like these type of effects. I have the same advice for playing this deck as I did for the green deck, and that's to playtest a lot. This is a deck for people who like to control the game, but in order to pull this off to its fullest potential, you have to master it. Blue requires a lot of thinking, and if that's not something you want to do for a big tournament with the fear of burning out, then you might want to consider other options. I do think this deck is a strong choice for deck limited battles though, because if you do master it, I think you'll do really well. I actually predict that this deck will win the most deck limited battle tournaments when it's all said and done, because people will get more practice with it, so I definitely believe in blue. All that's left to discuss for deck limited battles is the optimized Purple Kaido starter deck, so if you look forward to that, consider subscribing or just tuning back into the channel. I hope you all enjoyed this video discussing why you should believe in the Blue Crocodile starter deck, and if you did, give it a like. It's a strong option at the moment, and whether you play it or not, you'll want to be prepared for it because it's going to see a lot of play. Check out my videos on repping red or going green if you're interested in the Luffy or Eustace Kid starter decks for deck limited battles as well. But that's all I have for this one. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you on the next one.